Hello and welcome to the Thomson Reuters Hot Seat, an exclusive video series for business and finance professionals in the MENA region. In each episode we'll interview a global specialist and really understand more on the topical or challenging issues facing the corporate and financial landscape today. In the hot seat today we have Mr. David Fox, who is our Managing Director for Corporates in Asia and Emerging Markets. David's come in from Singapore. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks very much, Mark, and appreciate you having me. It's my first time here in the Middle East since having joined Thomson Reuters several months back, and for us it's an incredibly exciting region, a fantastic team that you've built here in terms of capability that we have in what is a pivotal year for Thomson Reuters in 2020. So great to be here to spend some time with you and also with our customers who are critical for us in region.
And it's great to have you, David. I think it's clearly an exciting time. And I think for today's hot seat session, we obviously would like to discuss what we're seeing with the creation of a lot of new trade patterns over the past few decades, from an increase in globalization to now trade wars. It's a very interesting market we're seeing out there at the moment. And at the same time, it also presents challenges, opportunities in regulatory compliance, and also optimizing how clients are doing trade both domestically and internationally. I think it's a great place to start to ask you what global developments you're seeing will shape trade in 2020. Good to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Mark. There's some incredibly compelling events that have taken place in recent times, as well as events that are ongoing, and look no further than coronavirus at the moment and the impact that that's having both in China, in the region, and also beyond that globally. So when we have a look at the situation in China, clearly there are challenges in terms of continuing business as usual activity, impediments to the export business, the manufacturing, which is core to their economy, but also then from multinationals' perspective who are sourcing goods out of China, there is then both an opportunity and a challenge to be dealt with. The challenge being interruptions to their supply chain, and the opportunity to explore new markets in and around China to make sure that they can source the same quality and supply of goods for the same pricing, to make sure that they're not adversely impacted from a financial standpoint as well. So that creates all sorts of opportunities to reevaluate supply chains and trade agreements in place in and around that. Beyond the coronavirus impact, obviously Brexit is now finalised, and so we've seen the European Union that has in place 58 free trade agreements with 36 countries, now leaving the UK in a situation where they can no longer leverage those free trade agreements under the EU, so they need to now pursue and actively engage with those countries to establish comparable agreements. And so that creates a little bit of a challenge for the EU as well, in the sense that countries have been used to dealing with the UK in many instances in priming EU-related activity and engagements, no longer able to channel those discussions directly through the UK, so they need to expand their contacts within the EU to make sure that those free trade agreements can best be leveraged and business as usual can continue in and around that. I think lastly, there's been some positive progress obviously with regard to the US and China and reconnecting from a trade perspective. And whilst that's got some distance to run and it's not complete as yet, I think phase one's been successfully closed out. And so I think returning to a state of normality without the trade-related tension and the impact that has economically on a number of climates worldwide is obviously a positive, and I expect to see some genuine momentum and further success off the back of those agreements being finalised and business as usual recommencing.
Great responses, and thank you for sharing that insight. I suppose it's ultimately what lens you look at the problem through. So I think with obviously the Brexit and the China-US trade wars, you know, I see that obviously the businesses operating in that space would either reach out to independent sort of expertise in global trade to help them facilitate a strategy, or perhaps technology and content to automate that. Do you feel that would be an appropriate response to actually gain positive momentum in those two scenarios?
Absolutely. Like with any business at the moment, there's an appetite for greater transparency, greater levels of automation, and also greater greater levels of control and predictability in a world that sees the volume of data that we're dealing with rapidly expanding. And so global trade and the challenges being faced are no different for multinational organizations worldwide. So we still see customers that are highly manual, that have significant overheads, that have risk associated with human error, and just an inability to control and effectively govern their trade engagement and relationships worldwide. So we certainly see technology playing a critical role in how do we automate, how do we better audit and control trade-related activity, and that's certainly where our focus and investment has been over the past few years and continues to be.
Thank you. Can technology play a role in easing trade compliance burdens and optimizing cost savings?
Most definitely it can. It can play a pivotal role. When we look back on some of those events I referenced earlier, just to maintain the status quo is requiring an incredible amount of effort. Human effort, labour, associated with tracking financials, associated with the changes that are taking place in the global trade environment. And so without looking to leverage technology, I think organisations are missing out on a real opportunity to drive efficiency and cost savings across their business. So through automation, we can improve predictability, we can improve transparency, and we have some fantastic solutions that we can work with our partners and customers to really enable them to understand the current costs in their environment and the potential value to fully utilise technology solutions in this space.
Thank you very much. David, beyond tariffs and quotas, what are the chief barriers to trade that you see going forward?
So I think in recent times we've seen a significant shift away from true globalisation from a trade perspective. We're seeing a number of key countries globally turn inward in terms of their focus, and so that is an inhibitor for free trade related activity, and it's also an inhibitor for countries that are looking to gain access to best practice in terms of quality of talent, in terms of quality of produce and output, in terms of financially what the best possible pricing is for goods available globally. So that's certainly having a significant impact when we have a look at the current trade environment.
So David, successful supply chain management requires insight, analysis, action and watchfulness. If you could leave our viewers with one piece of advice on how to optimize their supply chains and improve efficiency, what would you recommend?
So Mark, our customers are continually sharing with us that their greatest challenge, and certainly from our recommendation perspective, point number one is to actually map out and understand their supply chain ecosystem end to end. The reason why we see that as being so critical is to look to understand where there are opportunities for cost efficiencies, where organisation can start to de-risk their supply chain and make sure that the operational effectiveness is enhanced. They actually need to have that view to start then looking at how they can evolve their supply chain management processes. That's certainly where we recommend then embedding technology solutions. So with the implementation of global trade, supply chain management technology solutions, we see customers creating efficiencies through automation. We see the ability to gain greater insights in terms of risks in the business that from an executive perspective enables far more value-added conversations to be had up to a board level in terms of highlighting some of those challenges, and really brings about some proactive approach and leadership in the enterprise to make sure that supply chains are most effectively governed.
That's a very thoughtful answer. Thank you very much, David. And that about covers it for today. I would really sincerely like to extend a big thank you to you, Mr. David Fox, Managing Director of Corporates, Asia and Emerging Markets. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mark.
In the hot seat. To our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you'll be back again for the next episode. If you have any questions or feedback, we would certainly welcome that and look forward to you reaching out on the contact details. And thank you again, David, and wish you the best of today.
Thank you, Mark. Same to you.
Thank you.